on how user experience design thinking will help you to focus on the business offerings, digital business offerings of your company by keeping a customer-oriented focus. So our speakers for today are Mr. Chandan Maheswari. He is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing of Beauteo Systems Private Limited, and he'll be joined by his colleague, Mr. Rishikesh Bongare. So I think, Chandan, can you start the session?
Sure. So good morning, everyone, and thank you, Prashantji and team MCCIA for this. Over the past few days, we have been attending at least a couple of sessions I was able to attend, and it's extremely useful and a new way of interacting currently with MCCIA, because it's sort of a blessing in disguise. What used to happen in the past is we could make it to Senapati Bapad Road office sometimes, but with these sessions, we are more sort of regular. So one thing that I can tell you that from a customer experience point of view, it's a 5-star for MCCIA, and that is in a sense the session that we will be talking about today. So now formally good morning to everyone. Just to set the context, so possibly I'll be just sharing the context of what we really try to convey when we are putting up this subject, and what is the relevance for you, your business, and for you is something that I'll just go through for next 5-7 minutes, and then Rishikesh, my colleague who heads the design and experiential design at Beauteo Systems, he'll take over. He's a master in his area from a design, experiential design concept point of view. So I think that is something that you'll find extremely useful. Before I start, I just want to name few brands like Netflix that we have. I'm sure during the lockdown period, most of us have really relied heavily on Netflix. Apple is a no-brainer whenever we talk about anything to do with design. We talk about companies like Amazon. There's a city in India, for my nationalist friend, and I'm one of them for sure, called as Chandigarh. And if I have to also talk about a few Indian companies from the likes of even Reliance Jio today, to the likes of a hospital chain called as very famous Narayan Hrudayalaya in the state of Karnataka and city Bangalore. What are the common traits there if we look at this? One thing which stays out in all of them is the way the business model was thought of, conceived, and designed, and the entire design was done keeping the end customer in mind, or keeping the users in mind. For example, if we talk about Apple, I'm purposefully not talking about Apple because I think I'll just park it. But let us talk about Amazon, for example. What it is doing to us when we are interacting with it. It is helping us to put forth recommendations. It is helping us to suggest things that we otherwise would have just probably taken what we wanted in that specific moment, and then again might have come back for something else. But Amazon at that point in time, with their analytics, etc., is able to give us recommendations through which we are able to buy more and more. So if you see the experience, my experience when I deal with the Amazon platform is such that I really like to interact with it again and again. I mean, just for an example, look at the difference of two radio care cab service providers, which I'm sure most of us do interact with, called as Uber and Ola. Have you ever felt that you liked one app more than the other? I mean, personally, I'll tell you, I like to interact more with Uber. And not to say that Ola is bad, it's an Indian company which has done exceedingly well. But one of the reasons for me using Uber is the way the entire flow goes. It's very easy for me as a consumer to select it. I was also talking about a city called as Chandigarh. In India, obviously, it's the best city, and we can also put it right there in some of the global cities as well. If you have been to Chandigarh, you would see the way it is designed and planned, the way the town planning was conceived and designed is something which really gives all the people who are staying there or people who are visiting a lot of easy access to different areas. It's very easy to navigate there. So if you see now that the idea of design is something that we interact day in, day out, from the toothbrush that you use in the morning to the logos that your respective companies use or want to convey something, to let's say the house that we all stay in. Design is an integral part everywhere. And the need is felt even more, especially when the times are changing, and it's changing for whatever, good, bad, ugly, but we have to adjust to it. Today, one of the key challenges for most of us is in this constrained world where virtualization is pretty evident now, and that's the way forward, at least for the foreseeable future. One of the things is, how can we ensure that we are still able to move up, we are able to sell more, we are able to provide customers or our prospects with an experience that they would like to come back again. So this being a premise, and I think all of us kind of grapple with this today, that how can we do it? One of the things that customer centricity talks about is look at things from a customer's point of view. But again, UX, let me tell you, when the moment we talk about UX, the idea is a lot of UX people who are able to, let's say, design something and give you something. But is that it? Then why are companies, as I said, why Uber is different than Ola? Why people prefer Apple to any other brand? If I mean, UX is everyone's game, everyone can do it. But then why one brand scores over the other? There's obviously some sort of, there's a method to madness, and probably we'll try to unearth some of it today. There's obviously a belief that there are methodology that needs to be done. But primarily, that's a big question mark to all of us when our desire, when we do the session today, is at least for you to go back and think that in your business area, you must be doing great, but is it something which helps you to probably look at it again from an outsider's point of view, from a design standpoint, and probably refresh, or if it helps you to really sort of settle better. That's something that we desire as we move ahead with the session. So from here on, I will request my colleague Rishikesh. He will take you through the way we usually have learned, we usually have believed, we usually have delivered in the market basis this understanding, and we have got sufficient results. The definition of UX for different people could be different. I mean, Hindi में कहावत है, भगवान तक पहुंचने के बहुत रास्ते हैं. Some may be straight, some may be all over the place, etc. There's no right and wrong. When we talk about design, when we talk about how things should be laid out, there's no right and wrong here. And for sure, we won't say that this is right or wrong. It's just a matter of how best you understand your customers around, how best you understand your prospect, your own internal customers, basis which you put forth something like this. So we definitely believe in a certain approach of how it can be done. We have seen it from a global standard point of view, that is something that really works. And this is sort of the mantra that we want you to also, we want to share this experience with you in a way. So the structure will be, while Rishi starts, all the questions that all of you may have, as much as we want to answer it right there, but I think it will be easy for all of us that we'll take it close to the end of the session where we'll scroll through, look at all the questions and provide our input to those. So having said that, thank you very much. Rishikesh, could you please take over and take it further now? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chandan, for setting the context. I think Rishikesh can begin his presentation now.
Prashantji, my question was, till Rishi is taking over, I will
Sure.
just look at all the chats and maybe the questions which are posted so far till
Yeah,
Rishi you are setting
the
up.
basic question is how best to understand your customers.
Excellent. That is that is $1 million question, and that is
Yeah,
something that all of us need to
sure.
understand better. Obviously, this session for sure, with the way things you need to look at it, or a perspective that will certainly touch upon and probably answer this appropriately. That's something that I hope it will do.
Right.
Right. So I'm just starting with Akshat. We will talk about the approach. The whole idea of this session is where we talk about how do we approach, not only from a purely IT standpoint, because IT is the final execution, but uh, but where we have to really conceive this is at a stage which is way beyond when we look at our businesses, our interaction point, and then we look at defining it. Obviously, there's a manner in which it has to be done is something that will be covered. Uh, when we identify, so from Chandrasekhar, when we identify certain preference of customers, how do we assign them priority, or how do we rate them in terms of importance, relevance? Now, a very good question to me. Uh, so if you look at some of the leading brands today, how would they handle customers? I will take one example because that's one brand which I think is of late done exceedingly good job here. Is a brand called as Vistara, and I'm sure most of us would have interacted with the brand or have traveled in the aircraft. What Vistara does today is for different customers, and please note that there will always be 80-20 or a 90-10 principle which has to be applied. And all the businesses do apply because they are some of your key customers for whom you need to identify how do you handle them. It has to be very different from all the other customers. And there could be variations. The grade could be A, B, C, or just A and rest. Uh, or the banking for us does the same thing, isn't it? We have different priorities of account. Each of them would have different people who would be looking at it. But the whole idea is how do you ensure that customers with a certain importance and relevance to us, and this can be easily defined by the revenues or by the brand that we are earning because of that customer or because of the importance of it, we are able to segregate them. Basis that we should then be looking at probably having defined a customized strategy for them, which is where we could differentiate the experience or the design for customer A versus customer B. But at the overall level, when, for example, I interact with Vistara as a mass market customer, or Mr. Tharoor famously once said kettle class, my experience is still good enough because I feel that I get the worth of the money that I've spent. And obviously, I also understand as a consumer that more money I spend, I could get a more warm hospitality from their side, which is all understandable. But as a brand, when I interact with that, I'm very happy even if I fall in a very mass market sort of a category as well. Okay, Dr. Ramesh, I think let's wait for the session
Chandan, I'm back.
to take it up. Right. So
Rishi
Rishikesh
has
is there.
managed to log in.
Nice, excellent. So Rishi, please take it over. There are obviously a lot of questions, curiosity for you to
Sure.
feed people and share your views. Thank you.
And I think some of the questions will be covered in his presentation as well.
I'm sure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Thank you, Chandan. Thank you, Prashantji, for giving me opportunity to present this session. Uh, Thank you. So today's session is about methodology and approach about UX. Again, like in market, there is a lot of gray areas about UX. There are a lot of different methodologies, a lot of institutes having their own definitions. People are using UX or molding UX as how they want, and this is what not expected when UX term actually invented by Don Norman. So this whole presentation is in line with Don Norman and Jacob Nelson, which is NNM group, and they are like a forefather of UX, and they actually came up with this concept called user experience or customer experience or experience design. So let's start with that. So obviously, I mean, what is UX first? Let's discover. Uh, is it just competing through your DOS prompts, or is it browsing through our mighty windows, or is it interacting with the new age devices like Siri or Alexa or kind of those devices? Really, I mean, these are. Is it a UX or is it a interfaces actually? So there is a lot of confusion between user interface and user experience. So this whole thing starts with the concept called Big Six. Big Six is nothing but a aircraft control panel. Uh, in I mean, it starts. They say it's almost of 1940. So the requirement of sorting or easing or simplifying the design and the interaction with aircrafts or the emerging technologies. So UX actually starts with that need. So imagine, I mean, if aircraft pilot is interacting with those big six system through a DOS prompt. I mean, it sounds little, I mean, scary. Same ways, I mean, if you see, if you try to, actually interact with Siri or Alexa, to actually find a recipe or chocolate cookies. So this is how actually, I mean, Siri came up with. So there is a lot of recipes, but there is no visual. There is no, I mean, there is all the textual algorithms. So where you build all your designs. Again, I mean, yes, I mean it is the right thing, but again, experience is missing here. So what is experience? I mean, what does experience means? So experience means experience is actually based on a very simple model called VIM. It's visual, intellectual, memory, and motor. So what is visual, what is intellectual, what is memory, and what is motor? So experience, basically you need to uh, satisfy all these four aspect of a design. So let's move to the definition of UX first. So Martin says, I mean, a user experience is like a joke. If you have to explain it, it's not that good. Yeah, I mean, that sounds good, I mean, it's like a joke. I mean, if you have to explain what is user experience, then it's like, it's, I mean, that's the failure of user experience design. Uh, let's see what Don Norman actually expecting from the user experience, or what we actually envision about user experience. So Don said user experience, I mean, it's all aspect of end users interaction with the company, its services, and its products. Again, I mean, this is something, I mean, probably I could call it a customer experience now. So there is a difference between user experience and customer experience. So what exactly is user experience? I mean, uh,
Okay,
let's try to
Rishi,
simplify
could
this.
you also share with everyone who is Don Norman, because I think for the benefit of everyone there'll be some who would
Okay,
know. Yeah.
so Don Norman is basically a forefather of UX design. He was a colleague of, I mean, he was a head designer at uh, Apple, and he's basically a tall word in design world right now. And uh, basically, this nngroup.com is his blog or a website. I'll strongly recommend this website because I mean, they have simplified, or they have actually a lot of research based data available, lot of material available in terms of user experience, in terms of experience design. I'll not say user experience, but overall the experience designing. So let's move to actually what actually we at Buto believe what user experience is really is. So we believe like user experience is basically understanding the business needs and basically intuitively addressing those needs of the consumers of that business. So what that means, basically in a very simple language, understand the all aspects of the consumers, their behavior, their expectations, their needs, and I mean how they actually interact with the system. So through information architecture, through interaction design, to in short through interface, you know. So let's see the processes what actually UX is all about. I mean, so UX is nothing but the 4Ds, 4 dimensions of a design. uh, we can call it a strategy. uh, so what are those 4Ds? So 4Ds are basically you discover what's the requirement. So there is a very famous IDC infographic. Is basically empathy and ideate and those 5 6 so this is nothing but the same thing, but I just try to simplify it. I mean, this is based on what Don Norman is or Norman Group is saying, and this is based on what is our own experiences so far in learning with their methodology. So this whole presentation is basically based on the experiences which we actually created or we actually um, gone through, and again to checking it with the Norman and Nelson group. So first day of user experience is basically discover. So what discover means, I mean, what to discover. So discover what the desirability of the people, what exactly people want, what are their expectations. Explore, what is the viability of the business, what is possible actually. What are the stakeholders, I mean, define the measurable business goals, their objectives, their wish list, their features, and the third and most important aspect is basically technology, the feasibility of is it possible actually to convert into interface or interaction design. It's information architecture, it's design content hierarchy, then all the colors and presentations. Again, I mean, the vim basically visual, intellectual, memory, uh, and motor. So can we achieve those business objectives through that technology? So this is the whole, we can say overall the UX methodology and UX approaches. So let's explore one by one, like what people, I mean, how to discover that people desirability, or how to discover that business viability. I mean, what is possible. And yes, I mean, the fourth and most important aspect is basically validate. So get feedback, improve your product, improve your design. Again, go back to users, go back to businesses, go back to market, check ROIs, check feedback, and this is like the continuous process. And this basically all uh, revolves with each and every aspect of it, like, so it's all actually, I mean, all the people, business and technology is the core of UX. जो अपन बोलते हैं ना, वो तंबू ये 3 बम्बू पे खड़ा है तो it's something like that. So let's move to what is basically discover means, or let's call this as a strategy. So this is basically creating a design strategy. It's very important part. I mean, if you don't have a strategy, and most of the products or most of the designs fail because there is no strong strategy. And strategy means not only, I mean, again, I mean, we need to satisfy all three aspect of that product or that design, which is again people, business, technology. So let's identify, or let's explore. I mean, what the strategy is. Strategy is nothing but actually a scope. Strategy is nothing but goals. Strategy is nothing but plans. And basically identifying those basically coming together on certain critical topics. So there are identifying basically stakeholders very first. Who's who or who is doing what. So there should not be any gray area. In short, actually, this design strategy is nothing but the mental model of that product or that particular design. So let's explore, I mean, what the mental model or what this strategy is. So I'm taking this example, which is basically a dispenser. It's a condom dispenser. And let's see, actually, I mean, we designed this long back. And this is basically designed for an NGO. And again, I mean, if you see, I mean, any product, any ROI, I mean, how the ROIs change, how the, I mean, the executive intent or whatever purposes of the business change based on the products and based on the, strategy of a particular product. So, what do you think? I mean, if someone wants to sell something or someone wants to distribute something, what could be the purpose of that particular product? Usually make money or sell more or more objects or whatever products, or expand your services. So here actually their executive intent or their purpose of that project was basically to distribute, I mean, these products, and actually prevent the spread of HIV and these diseases. So they, they came up with this idea. So they want to actually create a ATM or hello, Prasanji, am I audible?
Rishi, I can hear you. There
Yeah,
are
yeah.
few
Okay.
the bits and pieces where it is
Sorry, I
going
got
off
some
and on.
error, so I just checked. Thank you.
No, you are audible.
Okay. So this product is basically, so they come up with the idea to design this ATM or a dispenser. So there were like a lot of, I mean, there were a lot of business objectives for that product. So basically, they want to prevent this disease. Then they want to create awareness of this, product, and they want to actually distribute as much as possible. And this was almost like a free. I mean, there was no. This was basically NGO, and there was no actually money involved or return in terms of monetary aspects. So so we did all the research. I mean, we identify the segments, user profiles. I mean, who could be the, so all adults are basically the, possible consumers of this product. So then we identified, I mean, because then our executive intent was very specific, like they want to actually, decrease the spread. And also basically we came up with certain user profiles. One of them was basically drivers. So truck drivers who, mostly go one part to other, like from Haryana to Chandigarh, or Haryana to Kanyakumari, or long distance things. And they have that habit to actually stay at some dhabas or motels, and they actually do a lot of other stuff. And these things actually happen. This disease spreads uh, at such hotspots, you can call. So we identify like what are the hotspot, what are the user profiles, what are their basically task profile. I mean, what they actually do, what are their environmental profiles. I mean, how they actually where they are located, or their geography, their workplace, their I mean all aspect of their lifestyle, you can say. So then we identify, I mean, what exactly they behave. I mean, they came to these dhabas. Uh, so because they drive their trucks or lorries for a long time, so they went for refreshments, and basically, so we identified some spots. Then uh, while designing this thing, so one of the aspect was basically we don't have to market anything, or in terms of monetary. So this should look like uh, you know uh, this should look like it's a serious something, which is again, I mean, we're close to the postal, that postal box, or something which is the government, similar to the I mean the government thing. Because there are some incidences happened, like people actually destroyed these boxes, or I mean, so we test all this aspect, and then we created with there are like constraint, we identified those constraint, and then we created marketing goals basically. So how we should actually market this dispensers, where we actually we identified spots like dabas, then some pan shops, or I mean some other areas near this hotspot. Then we decide actually what could be the critical success factors to actually implement all those, or to install all those designs. So what will the step one, what will be the step two, I mean, what where we will check the data. Then we actually identify all the personas. So if you see, there is a say knob instead of a button. So we identify like these drivers and these cleaners, they don't they're like a little I mean, they are not very soft and with the system. So they always like push hardly, or I mean, जोर से उसको ऐसा ये किया वो किया. So this is like a, actually instead of a button, there is like a knob. So they have to actually push that knob, and get their stuff, something like that. So this satisfied actually their so this is purely. And then this machine was actually placed on a lot of open areas. There is there could be a like in summer, winter, and all the barish and everything. So we actually created there are like a lot of people try to damage this just for fun, just for nothing. So then that material is actually based on that. Then so we came up with the lock. There was some additional safety features for that. So that's how actually we came up with a lot of success factors to implement this product. Then about business goal. Okay, so this was actually really important part. So business goal is you created product, I mean you implemented it, but there are a lot of other aspects as well, like to after, I mean, there is a whole system. So you actually created a product for end users, but to run that NGO, then you should have funds, then fundraising, then I mean, you should go with go to governments actually to ask them, like, you should also help this to expand. And so there were a lot of business goals we came up with. And then that's how actually this product, this strategy actually built. So I'll move to next part, which is, so now we actually identify the strategy, we identify the stakeholders, we identify, I mean, what critical success factors or user profiles are. We identified what the personas are, who are, what are the market segments rather, you know. So actually, once we got all that data, uh, that data was not actually based on full research, or we need to take findings, we need to take insights from those data, and we need to define, I mean, what is what and what is not. So the next factor is basically define. So this is nothing but user centered analysis. So define is basically mainly understanding the needs of that particular design. So say what business thinks and what this is basically bridging gap between businesses, technology, and people. Okay. So there is a systematic method to actually analyze and identify these findings and the data. So there are two major methods, which is direct method and there is indirect method. So direct method is again, I mean, for direct method there is a term called qualitative findings, or indirect method is basically quantitative findings. So let's see what the qualitative or a direct method is. So direct method is nothing but you know identifying just so direct method is nothing but basically researching and gathering data through user interviews. So this is end-to-end connection. Basically, you actually interact with users. You understand their. I mean, you go into their shoes. You understand their demographics, their domain knowledge, their task profiles. I mean, what they exactly expect from your design or product, and which are their functions. Uh, the next part is basically a contextual inquiries or a user observation. This is the most beneficial aspect of user center analysis. So basically, I mean, observing someone, I mean, especially user, how they behave in their environment, their own environment. I mean, what memory it required. Like memory required is what, I mean, if it's first time, how they interact with the product, uh, when it comes to repetition, I mean, how they actually I mean, just a sec, sorry. uh, the learnability, actually the memorability, I mean, how they interact second time or third time or nth time. So is it more accurate, is it I mean, real life, it's all about, I mean, I mean, observing them in their real life scenarios. So this is very important. Then complementary data gathering. So this is comparatively, like, I mean, when you don't have much time or budget or something, so then actually this is, this method helps uh, for data gathering. So basically, you concentrate on focus groups, like certain groups, and you ask them to perform some tasks, and you actually, I mean, observe them, or facilitated workshop or user group meetings. So this this is very specific. I mean, this is with the selective groups. You know? So we move to indirect methods. Okay, so indirect methods are basically, it's not interacting with actual users directly or face to face, but this advantage of this method is basically these are comparatively uh, more reasonable. These are very fast, but I mean, you know, disadvantage of this method is basically to they are not much reliable. I mean, these are based on certain assumptions, you can say. So they are fast actually, you know. So what indirect methods are? Indirect methods are nothing but to gather the data from help desk or you know, call centers or support desk, you know, or conduct some surveys like Survey Monkey is there, or this Nelson group is there. So they actually sample a few people and, you know, actually ask some question or create some service for them. So this is good. I mean, this is cost effective. Uh, this is automated. You can actually do this through some system. So this is like a quantitative data. I mean, you get a lot of data from this compared to direct methods. In direct methods, I mean, you can max to max, you know, interview 5 or 6, or ideally, I mean, it's between 5 to 8 interactions or 5 to 8 observation sessions, where here you can actually have, you know, 200 or 300 people's data to actually check, or even web analytics. You know, I mean, you can check your websites, you know, web analytics, or how many people actually exit page at what time. You know, I mean, what is the frequency of it? I mean, how much time they spent on particular task or a page, or, you know, on button. So this is overall like data gathering method. Basically, when you start a project, or when you actually, you know, think, this is, I'll say, I mean, this is the foundation of design thinking, you can say. So you have to actually wisely choose, you know, which method you have to, you know, go with in future for this particular project or particular, you know, design. So what is required, what is not required. So this is where I'll say design leadership, you know, actually get involved. So
Okay,
when we
Rishi, I mean, just to also substantiate this, I think Rishi made a valid point when he's sharing about these two approaches. Now, one evident question is when we look at which method to choose. Uh, so, apart from, let's say, the design leadership of your team, one of the area is, for example, what is the time to market that I need to look at? Do I have sufficient time to really to invest? So, for example, just after the COVID crisis, because there were people who prepared for it, there were people who were just there who were able to make that shift very, very quickly, or there are few of us who are stuck as well. Now, what happens is generally for a direct method, you have to, uh, this is a slightly longish method, but the accuracy reliability is much more because of the interaction level that you have seen. Because at a different level, you will be interacting, you will be understanding customers from a lot of heuristics, lot of different point of views. Indirect method can be something where your time to market is very, very low. Your budget, for example, you could be constrained on that heavily. So these could be the areas where you would like to at least take the best guess. Again, please understand when you, even if we talk about a concept of design thinking or strategic design or UX, it's not a success formula straight away. What it does is probably the probability of success is that much high if you do it well. Now, indirect method is something where we are taking the best guess, we are able to take actions very, very quickly, and then we are able to move on. Some of the product, if to give you one example, is we are using Zoom. But Microsoft meetings have really made a lot of inroads in the corporate sector. Uh, they were very smartly able to, they were plan and to deploy this into a wide variety of corporates, because Zoom was taking a lot of precedence, and they were in between they analyzed something and they were able to show this product to all the corporates with virtually zero cost at this point. The point was get used to this and then we'll talk about cost. So possibly some sort of a thought process that they had very clearly around this as well. Rishi, I think we'll have about 10 more minutes. So, so possibly, and then maybe 2, 3, 5 minutes more for question Q&A. So we'll just have to take it.
Yeah, yes, Chandan, we need to stop at 10:30 because there's another meeting scheduled. So I need to give the IT team some time to a breather in between two sessions.
Sure. Okay. So maybe about 5, 7 minutes of Rishi, and then we'll take the Q&A.
Sure, no issues.
Yeah.
So let's move to actually what is personas. So personas, they are a very specific user profile, which we identified as during, our research. What exactly our user is going to be, So say in our, that dispenser design. So our persona was some truck driver. Specifically from,
But let's possibly take it forward. Maybe the whole point, if I'll just continue from here on. What we are talking about is personas are the user profile that we have identified. Let's say from a customer standpoint, what are the different customers who would come and who would possibly interact with the brand or your product. So keeping that in mind, possibly that is where we are designing, or we are one of the areas where we are taking the design on. So for example, if we talk about a persona, it could be a user who would commute from, let's say, his home to office every day. That's one user. The second persona could be someone who would go to office, but would go to, after office, would go to 5 different areas. From a customer standpoint, both of them will throw a different way in which they are comfortable with the design part of it. Are you catering to both or not? So that's probably what you need to look at when you break the personas down. Rishi, if you are there, Rishi, are you there? Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm back here. Okay. So basically, basic difference between persona and user profile is basically user profile is a driver and persona is a specific, like Sanjinder Singh from Haryana, from this village is basically a persona. That's the difference. So let's move to scenarios. Scenarios basically imaginary situation or a story which involve all the business people and technology. So someone is, say the scenario could be, for Google, a scenario could be someone wants to, search for airfares, and they want to actually book some hotel thing. So this is overall scenario. This is imaginary thing. Whereas this is more of like a user story. What they want, why they want, and when they want. So basic difference between scenario and task is tasks are very specific. So in earlier example, so task is like basically that person will go to, he'll pick his phone, he will actually logged into particular website, or he will actually open the uh, Google web page, and then he will search, type that search. So this is what the task is, and that's the difference between scenarios and tasks. So tasks are basically what goals they wants to achieve. What are the dependencies and different paths they can actually. Yeah, this is very interesting point. Especially with the large interfaces. we all tend to have, identify, some ways to make it
I think
more efficiently or more faster, so it's like short keys or something. So this is like different parts. So let's identify, I mean, what different paths user are using to perform a particular task. So nature, I mean, what is the importance, or what is the frequency of that task? If, like, login is like once for a particular app, but then you actually open certain screens, or you click on certain buttons very frequently. So, so you need to understand the importance and the frequency of a particular thing. And then next portion is basically to prioritizing those tasks. So again, I mean, very simple method is basically to prioritize those tasks based on importance and frequency. So more, the highest or frequent, most, frequent and most important task on the higher side, and the lowest important and the lowest frequent task on the lower side. So that's how you understand, I mean, uh, you know what is the frequency, like, if you are designing a dashboard or something, so what could be your, the first few screens of that. So this is nothing but user journeys you create through that task flows. So what will happen, I mean, so user will come, and then he's log in. He will actually, for login something, he will actually fill all the his details. It's something like that. So we usually create for that. So identifying those, you identified those, persona, scenarios, tasks, and you prioritize those tasks. You created your basically task flows, and so now what is important is, like, what is the priority of all those content you gathered? What is the efficiency? I mean, how can you increase that efficiency, organize? So there are two methods. Basically, you write all those task names on some card, and you ask a user to actually perform this method, which is called open card sorting or close card sorting. Only difference between this is, basically, in open card, you you kind of categorize few tasks, like, say, services, about us. Let's say, example, as a website. So there is, leadership, then there is about us, then there is careers, and then there is like product one, product two, or service one, service two. And then you ask, I mean, the actual user, or marketing person, to title those tasks. So we can use sticky notes for that as well. So this is what
Rishi, I
we
think
use.
we'll have to probably uh, stop the session here. I would suggest because in the
I'll
interest of
just
time. Yeah.
quickly talk about the final, which is the
Yes.
usability testing part of it, which is how to validate. So there are, again, I mean, like the analysis, there are two approaches, which is qualitative and quantitative. So you need to check, with usability, check with user, which is heuristic evaluation, which is about second thing is good formative testing, summative testing, and this can be done through UT labs or remote UTs, something like that. So this is the most important part of that, basically testing or usability criteria. We should check all the products or all the designs uh, uh, to this six important point, which is effectiveness of that particular product, efficiency of use, then how easy it's to understand first time, you know uh, how it's good if use it frequently. I mean, if something is, you're going to use it 100 times a daily, so it should be also, I mean, satisfied the user. Then uh, how we can actually prevent those errors. I mean, if user are making some errors, or it's happening something, especially interacting with the interfaces, so how it can be prevent. and most importantly, how satisfactory that particular design is to the end user. So this is more or less what the user experience methodology and approaches. And okay, thanks
Thanks.
for
Thanks, Rishikesh.
giving me opportunity to. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Rishikesh. Chandan, just I think we can take one question.
Yes, we surely
This,
can.
yeah, this one is from Anil. He's asking, what do you think will be the next big thing in the UX design domain?
Well, if I have to take this up, I think, see, if you really look at it very, very clearly, it's all about how we see things from a user or from a customer standpoint. So to be honest, when technology is something which will come and go, will enable us much more, and it will happen over a period of time with driverless car coming, with the technology of 6G, 7G coming to our kitty. So that will always happen. But the key thing is how our users are behaving as well. So are we targeting or are we putting ourselves with millennials to Gen X, Gen Y? This will determine what we need to do. So I would stick to the point that it all finally ends up to understanding or knowing or observing what our user profile is like, and if it's a mix of audience or a specific audience. I would also like to apologize, first of all. I think our audio connection was not all that good. I understand, and I could read the chat as well there. For sure, the session and the content in which it is done, design thinking and the way we look at UX is not a very simple thing. Though it's not very complicated, it's not a rocket science, but it's not very, very easy as well to understand right away. But then the whole idea to put this across was, if you see the method, as I said, the method to madness, and there are certain ways in which men could be separated from the boys, and one of the questions was, what about the cost? China is a huge competitor to us. What happens there? I mean, I don't want to like to talk about China anymore. With the advent of Chinese virus, I think our prospects are way more, and believing in our people, I think we'll be able to capitalize much more on this area. But to talk about cost, see, finally we have to spend money where we have to. If it means, or if it would differentiate between creating a brand, creating a product which is stable and you are able to go on and on with it, or something which just starts and fizzles out in between. So that is where it will differentiate. And in today's time, if you see, there's no alternative to seeing things and offering it from a customer standpoint. Whether it is your website, I mean, I'm just going to a digital medium. Finally, if you observe yourself, you will spend more time at a website that you are comfortable, you understand the flow, to a website which is not very, very easy to eye. So there's a difference again to the product usage. There's a very interesting point, and I'm sure it would have flooded your WhatsApp as well. They say that why would a round pizza come in a square box? And it's a funny country, they say, right? There's a reason for that also. It is also driven by design. Finally, the square boxes and the size and the place that it would take and the stacking that needs to happen is much more conducive when you have a square box in a round pizza. So there's a way in which, if we look around, everything is designed in a certain way. And if we take that approach and to your business, to your area, if you look at it, it makes a host of a difference. And this is where today's investments are already going to, a lot of them, if you observe in a global market scenario. And I'm very sure this is where all of us, even the SMEs, are in a way getting pushed to. Obviously, monetary constraints are there, and so is where Rishi touched upon different methods. So there's a way in which we can probably mix few methods and to take the best of both worlds. So this is where I would conclude. Sorry again, because we wanted the experience to be better, and we will ensure maybe next time we are able to match that up. We will try and publish few of the knowledge areas through MCCIA as well, so that we understand, we share our knowledge in this respective areas. With this, thank you very much.
Chandan, is it possible for you to share the PPT?
We will share an abridged version of the PPT.
I would like to request Rishikesh to put in his email ID so people can write to you and take it from you directly. Otherwise, the recording will be available in 1 or 2 days on the MCCIA YouTube channel as well.
Sure.
So, Rishi, if you can just put in your email ID, we can keep this session on for another minute, and then we'll need to do a hard close. So, thank you, Chandan and Rishi, for giving this information about user experience, and it certainly gave us some lessons about what kind of user experience we should not have during online sessions. But I guess technology can't be helped. We'll try to do a better one-day session once the new normal begins, probably in some time. So it can be a more interactive session, and people can have a good feel about what you want to share. So thanks once again, Chandan and Rishikesh. We'll see you in some time. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.